Hello, this is Kush, your local realtor in the Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley, and today we will talk about 12 places where you should avoid buying a house. Here we go. Okay, so the first place is buying in a peat bog. This is specific to the city of Vancouver. This does not apply to the Fraser Valley. So peat bog are these places marked here on the city of Vancouver map. These used to be swamps and riverbeds back in the day, like many decades ago, probably like a century ago. But these were drained out, and houses were built on these peat bogs. So a big problem is they are sort of like a swampy area. The foundation settles, and it just creates an uneven surface. So no one likes a house settling down, and then it causes problems in the framing, and it costs a lot if you're rebuilding. I've heard probably like 100K to have like those screw piles. So try to avoid a peat bog area if possible. Okay, and the second problem is buying in a T intersection. So this is a feng shui problem. So this is mostly for Asian people. We do not like buying a house in a T intersection. This is where you have a street and a street facing directly the front door of the house. So this is again just, it's not the end of the world. There's no physical problem with buying a house on a T intersection where there's this road. You can see a road, but you do not want to reduce the number of potential buyers whenever you go to sell the house. So again, no physical problem with the house, but you do not want lesser people interested in a house in the future. So you just want as big of a buyer pool as practically possible when it comes to selling your house in the future. But again, no physical problem. It's just called bad luck. Okay, so the next one's buying a lot with an easement. So smaller easements are usually not a big problem, but if there's an easement which literally covers half of the lot, for example, this long, very deep lot, literally half of this lot is being covered by this huge easement. So you cannot build anything here, nothing with the foundation here, and pretty much your usable lot is this much, like pretty much like half of the lot is like unusable. Okay, so the next wrong place to buy a house would be a house facing or backing onto power lines. So these guys look like these. So if you see them, turn your back, run away. You should not be buying a house directly backing onto power lines. So just a quick reminder, does not matter. There's no scientific evidence. It does not cause cancer. There's nothing physically wrong with power lines. It just reduces the number of buyers. Similar to T intersection, doesn't really affect your day-to-day life. It's just we do not want to buy a house which has lesser number of buyers in the future whenever we want to sell the house. So, but again, it depends. If a typical, let's say an old house on a 7,000 square foot lot in Surrey, in like a normal area would be, let's just say 1.3. I would personally pay 100K less if it's backing onto power lines. So if let's say you're getting the same $1.3 million house for 1.1, 200K, so I would be the first one to buy the house. So it all depends on the numbers. So it's not like do not buy this house. The numbers should make sense. Okay, moving on. The next problematic area would be a house backing onto a creek. It doesn't really matter if a creek is very far away from the house, that's okay. But if it's literally passing through the lot, this causes a lot of problems when you're going to develop this lot in the future. So physically, nothing wrong. It's nice to have creek. It's water flowing. It's a very serene environment. But development-wise, this is a problem in the future. Solution is you can hire a QEP, a qualified environmental professional. They usually reduce the setback. Usually I think the setback is like 100 feet. So you cannot have anything literally 100 feet from the top of the bank. But QEPs are usually able to reduce the setbacks if you already have a house which has a creek. But try to not buy one if possible, or at least pay lesser if it has a creek. This is especially a problem in bigger acreages. Okay, so the next problematic area would be buying a house which has an underground oil tank in the backyard. So back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, even some 80s as well, an oil tank was the primary source of heating the house. Now, then of course later on gas furnaces were introduced, but back in the day, oil tank was used in almost like every house for heating purposes. But later on, they were left in the ground as is, and this is a huge problem because sometimes the oil was also left in the oil tank, and the oil would leak in the ground. And sometimes, if your luck is really bad, it could even seep into the ground of your neighbor's house as well. So the remediation of an oil tank is super costly. It could be anywhere from $5,000 to like literally $100,000. I've even heard $200,000 if it's like really bad. So try to make sure that you have done an oil tank scan before buying a house, especially if it's older than 1990, let's say. Okay, so the next house which you should not buy is a house which has poly B piping. So early, anywhere from 1900s to 1970s, 80s, houses used to have copper piping, but in the 1990s they started having poly B piping. It's this dark gray piping. This is it's prone to leaking. Everyone is aware in Vancouver that poly B piping is really bad. And then in the early 2000s they changed it to PEX. Nowadays every brand new house only has PEX piping, the PEX. It's super easy to locate poly B piping. Just open a sink underneath the sink, and if it's darker gray in color, that's poly B. Again, it's not the end of the world. It's just depending on how many kitchens and how many bathrooms you have in the house, it could cost anywhere from $8,000 to like $20,000 to replace all the piping in the house, including all the the drywall and the paint and stuff. So just make sure that you are aware if it's a 1990s built house. If it has poly B, there is an extra cost that you could be on the hook for in the future. Okay, so the next house which you should avoid buying is a house at the end of the cul-de-sac, usually a pie-shaped lot. So the house which has very small frontage and it goes like this, especially exactly like this. So again, nothing physically wrong. The only problem would be less frontage, so lesser number of cars can be parked here. So just but again, that's not a huge problem. It is what it is. But it causes some development problems in the future as well, and there's lesser number of buyers looking to buy pie-shaped lots or irregular shaped lots. So just try, if possible, try to buy a rectangular or a square normal lot with the normal frontage, like anywhere from 40, 50, 60 feet frontage in Surrey. And the 10th house which you should avoid buying is a house which has had marijuana grow up in the house. Anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's crawl space, the garage, anywhere in the basement, the actual house. If it has had marijuana grow up, you should try to avoid it. Majority, like 95% of banks will not finance. So there's some like Vancouver which will, or some credit unions and some private lenders which will finance, but most of them need like a CMHC insurance, or the down payment required is like 25, 30, 35% down, in some cases even 50% down. And again, it's nothing physically wrong. Usually they're remediated. There's nothing wrong with the air quality. Of course, the city makes sure that the air is okay. There's nothing wrong for the occupants, but it's just a stigma. If it's a marijuana house, it is what it is. There's less number of buyers. Usually the price is like 100, 200K cheaper than for the same exact house without the marijuana grow up. So if possible, try to avoid. But if you're getting a great deal, let's say $300,000 under the market value of the house, then it's okay. You just have to understand that the buyer pool will be a lot smaller whenever you go to sell it. But if you're a builder, these are the best houses you can buy. You literally buy a house for pennies on a dollar for, let's say, like 300K under the actual market value. You tear it down and you rebuild a new house. Voila, like there's no marijuana grow up if you're rebuilding a house. So the banks usually normally finance for as long as the house has been completely torn down. But if you're just a normal person, not a builder, no intention of building anytime in the future, just try to avoid these houses. Okay, moving on. The 11th house which you should avoid buying is a house facing or backing onto a cemetery. Nothing physically wrong. It is what it is. I don't believe in ghosts. That is not going to rise up and then take over your house. But less number of buyers. People are usually afraid of buying near cemetery. It is what it is. You could buy, just make sure you don't pay the market value, or you don't pay the same exact price as the one which does not face the cemetery. So again, as long as the numbers make sense, it's okay, but try to avoid if possible. Okay, and the final house which you should avoid buying is a house in the CD zoning. So let's say in Surrey, the standard zoning is RF, but if it has a CD zoning, then you should just avoid it altogether. There's two different types of CD. There's one for high rises, but the one I'm talking about is the one that restricts the building size. So back in the day, some neighbors got together and they were like, not in my backyard. They were like, we don't want big massive houses in our backyard. So they just proposed to the city, and the city changed the zoning to CD. And now there's not a lot of them nearby in the Lower Mainland, but the most common ones are the ones, let's say in Cedar Hills in the St. Helens Park. This is entire CD zoning. Usually you're allowed less than a 8,000 square foot house, or 8,000 square foot lot. You're allowed like 6,000 square foot house for 3 levels in Surrey. But in the CD zoning, you're only allowed like 2,800 square feet. So like 2,800 square feet, 6,000 square feet, a huge difference. So builders usually avoid this area. Or there's some in Royal Heights, like around Princess Drive, like somewhere around here, and there's some near Boulevard Heights here, somewhere there near the school. There's some I believe near the Crescent Beach, like somewhere at the very bottom here. So just, if possible, if you're a builder or looking to build anywhere from now to in like 10 years from now, just try to avoid the CD zoning houses. But that being said, next month when the new rules come up, maybe the city will get rid of CD zonings, who knows. But for now, just try to avoid buying in a CD zoning if your intention is to build. But if your intention is to literally live in a nice peaceful neighborhood, then it's actually a good thing to buy in a CD zoning. So if you're a developer, don't buy. But if you're let's say a boomer, you just want a quiet neighborhood with lesser density, then CD is perfect for you. Alrighty, this is Kush Kosa signing off, your local realtor. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, and if you have any specific questions, please reach out to me anytime. And if you want to see a specific type of video, do write it down in the comments and I will see if I can make it. And if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere from Vancouver to Chilliwack, shoot me. Do not shoot me, shoot me a message. Thank you very much. Bye bye.